Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast. Welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, coming to you from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland in New Zealand. And this week we're joined by Zach. Hello, Zach.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And we've also got Ilka and Mary. Ilka, how are you this week?
I'm doing very well.
And also Mary, good to see you again.
Yes, it's good to be back.
Awesome. All right. Well, you're chatting. You had a conversation with a repeat interviewee, Heather, and Collective Carpentry been on the show and been featured on the Passive House Accelerator a number of times. But of course, we're focusing in May on prefab. And Zach, you want to remind everyone about what's coming up?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So on Friday, May 17th, we have Reimagine Buildings Prefab, which is a 4-hour conference focused on prefab, the promise of prefab, the pitfalls to avoid. And we're going to be learning from a bunch of pioneers who are figuring out how to make it work and how to harness this innovation to do better buildings, better high-performance buildings, better low-carbon buildings. So super excited to see the roster of speakers, and we'll include a link in the show notes so people can check it out. And I hope that we'll see folks on May 17th.
Absolutely. All right. We'll get into this chat with a bit of an update on how things are going with Collective. But before we do, back to you again, Zach. You want to give a bit of a shout out to our supporters?
Yes, absolutely. So a big thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thanks to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Glavel, Ingui Architecture, Minitaire, Partel, Rockwell North America, Stillcorp, and Zola Windows. And thanks to our champion sponsors, Bewizo, Gradient, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, PH Air Seal, and Source 2050.
Awesome. All right. Well, as I said, Collective Carpentry are no strangers to the show, and we have featured Heather. Ilka and Mary, you interviewed Heather recently or previously on the show, so this is a bit of an update. So perhaps we should just jump straight in, and we'll come back and discuss some highlights afterwards.
Welcome, Heather Mott, Director of Architecture at Collective Carpentry, and welcome back to our podcast. It's been about a year or so since we last talked, and I'm really excited to hear what's been going on at Collective Carpentry, and especially what's been happening with your line of pre-designed homes known as Collective Homes since we last talked.
Well, thank you for inviting me back. I'm happy to be here. And over the past year, we've had a lot of progress. So I'm happy to share some of that with you all.
Great. Now, I understand that you've made some changes to your line of pre-designed homes. So can you talk about what spurred these changes?
Yeah, so we've been working on these homes for a few years now. We've built a few of them, and we've refined the designs down to 3 of the most popular. And we've developed them to a high level. Each of the 3 designs we're trying to target a different audience. So it's kind of like a small, medium, and large option. And all the previous designs that we've customized, they're still available to homeowners, but that would be more of a custom design path. So we've really honed in on these 3 designs as the standard collective homes that have just been given a lot of love and attention. And the biggest benefit from these homes is that they have had so many sets of eyes on them over the past couple of years. So many people, from passive house certifiers to structural engineers to our own, internal design and prefab teams, that everything has just been so finessed to a part where we're just really happy with the level of development, and we're really trying to push these as an affordable option for reducing the soft costs that are typically associated with building at this level of performance.
So what did you start out with, and what were the changes that you made over that process? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, we started out with about 8 designs, and there were still 3 base models. And the designs had various roof changes to try and change the aesthetics of them. And I think the lesson we learned here is that we just gave people a little bit of decision fatigue. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and there's 50 things on the menu versus when you go to a restaurant and there's only 4 things on the menu. They're going to be 4 really good things. So that's kind of the path that we're trying to narrow down on. Some things that we've learned along the process, things like building I call it a power team, a team of consultants that know our system really well, they know our designs really well, and they've looked at them enough times that they've kind of got it memorized, and all of our coordination meetings go really smoothly. We've figured out great ways of communicating with one another. One of our biggest changes, and this isn't just specific to collective homes, this is across all of our prefab projects. We've recently changed our process of communicating with consultants, where with prefab, we create a digital parts-based model, and it's a duplicate from what we get from the architect. And we used to use this model to create a set of drawings for coordination. It was the step before shop drawings. So we would share these drawings with all of our consultants. They would mark up the drawings with any of their comments or any changes. And we've kind of skipped that step, and we've gone straight to just sharing our parts-based model directly with our consultants, with the client. And this is, we have web viewers and things like that for people who don't already have a BIM software that they can import it into. But this has been really helpful. We've got a lot of really good feedback, because now the consultants can dive right into the model. They can spin around the model. They can superimpose the model right over their architectural volumetric models and see any inconsistencies, or see where some MEP systems might be conflicting with joists or other framing members, things like that. So that's been a new change that we've implemented, and we're really happy with it. It's great for the clients because it reduces a lot of the hours that our prefab digital fabrication team spends on the project, which ultimately reduces the cost of the project altogether. And the consultants are able to just get a little bit more thorough with their reviews of the models. So it's been a really great tool for us.
So I would just want to go back to a previous point you made, which is you were talking about small, medium, and large and having different audiences. So I'm really curious, can you give me some dimensions of what you mean by small, medium, and large, and what are the different audiences that would be interested in the 3, or that tend to be interested in those 3 sizing?
Yeah. So the small, medium, and large designs are, they're actually named after Tolkien's, straight out of Tolkien's dictionary, as you guys might remember. So the small one is called Parian, and that is about 1,200 square feet of internal space, and 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and that is mostly, most people who are interested in that design are looking at it for a DADU or a small vacation home, or sometimes people want to put it above a garage, things like that. So it's kind of our smallest model, just 2 bedrooms, so not a really great family house. Our next size, the medium, is called Kalina. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathrooms, and 1,500 square foot of interior space. And because it's 3 bedrooms, it appeals to more families, young families. And then the Asta is our largest. That's about 1,800 square feet. It's got 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and it has a lot more flex space. So you get bonus rooms like a loft and an office and things like that. So different audiences prefer the different styles, and it just depends on how big their family is, how big their lot is, things like that.
And do you change the wall assembly at all depending on where the house is going to end up to, in response to the local climate?
Yeah, we do. We have 2 main wall types. The first is our standard, it's the I-joist outrigger wall. And that assembly is 2x6. That is the service and structural layer on the interior. And it's installed uninsulated. And typically the GC will come back and install that insulation after we leave. Beyond that is the 1/2-inch plywood, and that's our air barrier. So all seams taped, any penetrations through there are going to be really thoughtfully gasketed and taped. Beyond that is the I-joist, and it's dense packed with cellulose. So this is a really great assembly, altogether about R55. Kind of depends on what your bat insulation material is, but about R55. So it's great. We're using that in a project we're doing in Winthrop, Washington right now, which is a cold climate. Another project we're doing in Bozeman, these colder climates. And then as you move towards coastal areas, we recommend our C-joist wall system, which instead of the 9.5-inch I-joist, it's a 8-inch C-joist, and then it has a 2x4 structural layer. So it's just a little bit thinner, I think altogether about 12 inches, and we get about R45 with that one.
You got some feedback, you said, from raters and from consultants and from clients. So what are the main takeaways that you got, and what did you change on your design?
Yeah, so one of our projects is being certified right now by Tad Averhart of the certifiers, and he has been an invaluable resource on the project, having his eyes on it. And one of the things that this project has benefited from specifically that will apply to all future collective homes is one of our details for the door threshold location within the wall assembly. So just within the rough opening, Tad recommended relocating the door position from where I had it originally, which was bearing straight on a concrete slab, because in my mind that made a lot of sense to me. Support the door and the weight of the door and footsteps over the doors to locate it right over the concrete slab. Tad actually recommended moving the door just 4 inches outwards so that it bears down on EPS foam instead, which is a part of the foundation assembly. And just relocating that door over the foam, and of course changing it to a high density foam with some pressure treated plywood so that it can still handle the weight of footsteps and the weight of the door itself. Just changing that so much improved our FRSI value so that we are no longer at any kind of risk for condensation, avoiding mold growth, all of that. So it was already safe, but this is just a belt and suspenders approach. It's a really, really strong door detail now. And little things like that have happened all around this house, where Tad has just been so helpful and being eyes over all of our details and improving them. And there are standard details, so every future design project that we do will benefit from these little tiny changes that were recommended to us.
The advantages of a certifier and going through a certification process.
Yes, exactly.
And the goal of all of these pre-designed models to make them the goal is to make them cost effective, right? And the only way to actually reach that is to streamline and standardize as much as possible and avoid customization. So have you reached that point with those 3 units? Do people really come and say, this is thought out enough, I don't need to make any changes, I'm taking this as is?
No, but we're still hopeful. We're still hopeful, and we're currently getting one of our designs, the Kalina Passive House certified, and we're hoping that that will be enough of an incentive. Look at how optimized this design is. Look at how, you can take it and it could already be so close to being Passive House certified. It just depends on your site orientation and your climate, of course. So we're really hoping that that's the path we're going down now. But we also understand customization is important for people, and having that sense of individuality in your home, and it's important. So we still do offer that, but we're definitely trying to incentivize the standard don't change anything path.
And are the panels, the bio-based nature of them, is that important to the clients generally, or is that a secondary consideration for them? What do you think?
Yeah, great question. What we find is that most people who are interested in building high performance have a holistic view of what it means to build better. And part of that equation is the materials that you use. So it's definitely a big advantage that our panel system performs really well, and it's also made of really healthy materials. A big part of that is all wood-based, plant-based. So cellulose is a recycled newspaper, and it's got some additives for pest and fire control. But the big part of that is that it's plant-based, and so it's really great for embodied carbon.
Oh, how about windows and mechanical systems? What is included and what needs to be decided depending on climate and location?
Yeah, we really like using windows, which is made from Advantage Architectural Woodworks, and I think they're based in Canada. I'm sorry, they're based in Kansas, but they have a German patent, so you get the best of both worlds: the German engineering with the locally sourced products. And we prefer the wood with aluminum because it's beautiful, because it's better for the environment than something like a PVC product. But we also do offer the UPVC as an option, and it usually comes down to the cost difference. They are included in our collective homes, but we've gotten a lot more flexible about whether or not we require them to be included. Sometimes if your general contractor is experienced in high performance construction and knows how to properly install a triple pane window, then sometimes they can source them and install them. And the great thing about that is with prefab, it's really difficult to align lead times with our panels coming out of the shop and the windows coming out of their shop. And sometimes that means if we're installing the windows, then we need to remobilize a team to go out on site to install them. So it is great when the GC can install them, but as a base, we usually do include them in our package.
And what about the mechanical systems? Are most people who are choosing to work with you guys choosing to go all electric?
Yeah, definitely. All electric is a very common theme. We have the occasional wood burning stove, and there's all kind of debates that can go on about that. But give the people what they want. We include a mini split heat pump. It's designed in the system, and then an HRV or an ERV, depending on the climate. If somebody wants to hire a mechanical designer for a more robust system, or sometimes people want radiant heated floors, or really complicated mechanical systems with makeup air and things like that, then they're always welcome to hire a mechanical designer. But our packages do include the mini split heat pump and HRV designed in.
What about installation? Can you just talk a little bit about your process for that?
Yeah, we have 2 install crews. One is based in the US and one is based in Canada. And most of our projects are projects in the United States, so they're definitely the ones we keep busiest. And something we've done recently is our install crew is also trained in CAD work. So they're helping with the digital fabrication behind the scenes. This is something new within the last year or so. And it's been really, really helpful because when the install crew is a part of the prefab design, they have a more intimate understanding of the whole panelization and all the pieces and how everything's fitting together. And we found that it speeds up the install a little bit. It just makes them feel more involved in the process, which has been really great. Most of our projects are single family residential, not all of them. We've got a couple multifamily projects coming down the line. But for single family residential, a typical install takes anywhere from 5 to 10 days. And we need the crane on site, which is, something we have to rent locally. But we ship all of our panels from Invermere, British Columbia, where our shops are, and then ship them to site. The install crew mobilizes from wherever they're based. Our crew's kind of based all over the US, so they meet up on site and then install.
So for your pre-designed homes, again, the goal is to keep those cost effective, right? Is there any kind of restrictions where you would sell your pre-designed houses to?
Yeah, good question. We sell from all the way from California, New Mexico, all the way up north. We're in British Columbia, and in a little bit of Alberta. But our most popular regions are from the Rocky Mountains west. It doesn't make a ton of sense to go too far east just because there's so many great prefab companies already on the East Coast. Yeah.
And you mentioned there are some multifamily projects coming up in the works. Can you tell us a little bit about any of those?
Yeah, so the Artisans Group out of Olympia, Washington, is building their new office. It's a multifamily building with their office on the ground floor and then some housing units above that. And it's going to be in Tumwater, Washington, just outside of Olympia. And we will be prefabricating it this year. And the Artisans Group is so wonderful. We love working with them. They're such experts in prefab and passive house that the process with them always goes really, really smoothly. And we're excited to be working on this project. And we're also honored that they chose us because they're the developers, they're the general contractors, they're doing it all. And so it's an honor that they chose us to work with. And we're excited about that one. I think we'll probably be hosting some open houses and getting a little bit more multifamily coming our way now that we've opened up our second production shop in Canada.
Ooh, well, tell us a little more about the second. Is that also in Invermere?
It is in Invermere. It's just down the road from us. It's not new, but it's new to us, and it used to be a metal fabrication shop. So we've grown our production capability, about quadrupled it, and so now we're trying to keep up the inflow of projects so we can feed the beast. And we've got a really great shop crew up there, and we're getting some new equipment. We've been operating mostly with manual equipment for a long time, and so the guys did a tour through Europe a couple years ago to investigate assembly lines for the prefab shops in Europe and how they're doing it. And they kind of got to pick their favorite assembly lines and pick their favorite equipment from that experience. And so now we're back in the shop. We got a grant from Clean BC to upgrade our shop, and they said keep doing what you're doing. So we're just going to try and do more of it. So we've got some new Weinman bridges and things like that coming in.
And when do you know approximately when that's coming?
Yeah, the shop is already up and running, and the new equipment will be. It's some of it's already installed. We got some cellulose blowers and things like that. Some of the new equipment's going to be installed in a few weeks, I think.
Well, that's exciting, though. To be able to expand your capabilities, and which means you'll be able to produce more collective homes.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Well, thanks so much. I understand you're going to be talking at our upcoming RB Prefab conference, and we'll get to hear more about that project at that conference, right?
Yes, coming up this May. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, and that was Heather Mott, and thank you, Ilka and Mary, for bringing us that conversation, that little update. Ilka, you got some experience with working with prefabrication and with Collective as well. Any thoughts on that little update from Heather?
Well, it was just nice to touch base again with her and hearing a little bit more about their model homes, which last time we talked, she kind of told us about all these different options that they developed and had available for customers. And now kind of hearing about what they've learned over the year, that it's maybe better to have less options.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Because otherwise it just becomes custom again. And I think the goal for all of us is to make prefabrication more cost effective so that we can really use it to scale up high performance and passive house building or construction methods. So I think just learning that what she called a fatigue in
decision fatigue.
Yeah. The paradox of choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then really being able to focus on a couple of units that they then are able to really refine and make most cost effective with standard details, but also in terms of passive house detailing, the most efficient.
Yeah. It was interesting hearing that there is still some customization going on. I guess that's a challenge for the industry because people are just so used to being able to change things. And I know the industry is experiencing that here a little bit. But at some point here, just the affordability issue becomes so big that it kicks in and overrides that option for a lot of people because the take it or leave it option is really the only viable one, and then that kind of takes away that. In some ways, it's a bit of a luxury to be able to just move things around and customize. But I can see how that's an ongoing challenge to really fix a plan and say this is not changeable apart from just sort of very, very minor details. Mary, what did you think?
Well, it's just exciting to see the growth in prefab generally, but specifically with their company, because I've been following that company for a while, and they got the grant to get new equipment to and mechanize the process more, which again is going to be a step towards making it more affordable for people. And so they got that grant, I don't forget exactly, but about a year ago. And so now they've moved into their new facility and they're getting more, automating equipment, which is great. That's very exciting to see that step up in production abilities that they're going to have with the new equipment and the new facility.
Yeah, I agree. And similarly, I've been watching these guys for a while, a number of years now, and seeing them start out in what wasn't much more than a shed, really, and just building walls fairly similar to as you'd build them on a building site, but building them lying down and in a shed so they could work all year round. Now to be opening a second facility with more of a production line is great, and the fact that there's a market to be able to support that, which I think people like Collective Carpentry are partially responsible for growing that market as well. So it's quite a nice business story, knowing that a couple of people can build something up and then slowly grow it over time and evolve it and bring on more people and evolve the industry, which it's really great. And also really encouraging that there are grants available to help accelerate things like that, because it means that there is interest and that other people can see all the wider benefits of doing what they're doing. Zach, you mentioned before we are recording that you'd quite like a little prefab house.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if they're looking for just like a test site where they could build one. I'd be happy to donate.
Plonk one in the backyard.
Or provide some yard. Yes, I would. That when Heather mentioned that the small one was 1,200 square feet, it made me wonder if it might actually fit in as a detached ADU in Seattle's rules. And I keep on dreaming of a passive house ADU back there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would, and I'm also keen to find a set. I'm happy to accept a non-custom solution if it means that I can actually afford to do it. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. And just to finish off with Ilka, going back to the idea of sharing digital information, I know that there's still some work to be done in that area, but do you think we as an industry or the industry in general is getting better at sharing digital models and having everything a bit more compatible? We still got a bit of work to do in that area.
I think the industry is getting better, but I think there is still a long ways to go, just in terms of expectations, what you can share, what you can't share, aligning models. But I think in general, that's where it needs to go, because we have all these different models available now, and they're so redundant, right? So the idea is really to streamline and reduce redundancies between an architecture office and the prefabricator. And, we actually started really experimenting with, okay, what goes in which drawing set, and what does the architect not have to draw anymore because it's coming from the manufacturer or from the design to manufacturing prefab designer. So I think that's a really good I think that's a big promise.
Yeah.
that is out there. We still have ways to go, but I think it has to happen. It definitely has to happen. I think manufacturing or prefabrication has to become part of a design flow in architecture offices,
yeah,
so that it's not seen as something additional that you have to do as an architect.
Nice. Very good. Well, hopefully we can get there at some stage, keep progressing things along. Well, thank you to you both. I think that's a really good addition to this series, because they have been such great leaders in this space. So really nice to hear from Heather, and the fact that the Collective Carpentry is growing. Go and check out some of our previous interviews with the team there in the back catalogue of podcasts, but also there's some great articles featuring Collective Carpentry on the Passive House Accelerator website. Zach, you mentioned at the top of the show, but what do people need to do to be involved in the upcoming Reimagine?
Yeah, so we'll have a link to the registration in the show notes, but you can also just go to the PassiveHouseAccelerator.com homepage, and at the top there you'll see a little looping video and a link to that, and then you just join us online. It'll be we'll get going at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Friday, May 17th, and the program will be, there's 3 hours of presentations by Passive House pioneers, and then an hour of trade show spotlights featuring prefab manufacturers. It's in the interview, Heather mentioned artisans groups. So Tessa Bradley of Artisans Group is going to be presenting as well. And Edie Dillman of Be Public will be one of the presenters. She was featured in that excellent podcast episode that Ilka, you hosted last week, episode 184. And Jacob Deva Rakusin, a whole cast of characters. I can't name them all right now, but really, really great people And we'll do this is going to be on a similar platform as the Reimagine Buildings 24. So it's going to be highly interactive, high production values, kind of an online happening. So one of the showcases of our year for sure. So we hope that people will join us.
Yeah, fun. It was really interactive. I'm sure a lot of our listeners may have joined for Reimagine, but a big part of that was not just listening to the interviews, but the chat that was going on during those. And then there is that virtual space to go and have a chat with suppliers and people, which actually worked really well. I think that technology, that platform has progressed a long way in the last couple of years. So I think it's really exciting to be able to repeat something like that and not just sit and listen, but also be part of it in a virtual sense as well. Awesome. All right. Well, that's probably enough to plug, unless there's anything else, Zach. That's the main event.
Great. Yep, that's right. We'll see you on the 17th.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ilka and Mary. Good to see you both. And we will be back again next week on Passive House Podcast.